Hey, how's it going guys? Cyclical here at it again with another Naruto discussion video. Today, I'm sure you are all able to tell this from the title, but I've got another versus battle to go over. Now at first, I actually wanted to do Jiraiya versus Team Taka, but I got to thinking about it and I was kind of thinking that Jiraiya versus just MS Sasuke would be a more interesting battle. I still wanted to do a group versus one style video though, so here I am with Jiraiya versus Team Hebi. I hope you all enjoy. Getting straight into things, I first wanted to establish that Jiraiya is indeed at the level of fighter that he needs to be to take on a group like Hebi. I've heard there's a statement out there somewhere that Jiraiya in Sage mode is stronger than any of the 5 Kage, and while I wasn't able to verify this statement anywhere, I do want to go on record by saying that Sage Mode Jiraiya is almost exactly at the top of Kage level as a fighter. We can back up this interpretation through a few different means. The first way of scaling Jiraiya is through something that should be fairly obvious, the fact that he's one of the Sannin. At a glance, the title doesn't prove anything about a character's strength. However, the Sannin are consistently shown to be around the same level as each other throughout the series. And if Orochimaru in Part 1 is capable of taking on Hiruzen in single combat, and Hiruzen is supposed to be one of the strongest Kage at the time, and also that Tsunade is Hokage through most of the series, and during the fight against Madara and such, it's shown that she's doing most of the work for the team. Given that Jiraiya is supposed to be roughly equal to these two high Kage level fighters, it's already confirmed that he should be able to fight on par with the Kage. The second way we can prove that Jiraiya should be towards the top of Kage level is through comparing him directly to two other characters, Sage Naruto and Pain. While he never interacts with Sage Naruto, both Naruto and Jiraiya do have a directly comparable performance against Pain. Before I get ahead of myself in this section, I need to bring up that this is the point in the series that Naruto has finally surpassed Jiraiya, and so we will go forward from here with the assumption that Sage Naruto is factually stronger than Jiraiya. As many of you probably already know, Pain is one of the strongest fighters in the entire series. He was able to take out Jiraiya, which I know seems odd to bring up since we're trying to scale Jiraiya here, but his ability to beat Jiraiya causes the other characters in the series to react as if he's a major threat just due to this one feat. Pain was then able to go on to destroy the entire Leaf Village almost single-handedly, and this village had people like Kakashi present, who is himself bordering on the Kage level. Immediately after finishing the entire village by himself, Pain was able to combat Sage Naruto, who we've already established is supposed to be stronger than Jiraiya here. And Pain is also able to put Naruto into several losing positions throughout the course of this fight, only losing because he was fighting to capture Naruto rather than kill him. Had Pain been fighting to kill Naruto, he would almost definitely have taken a victory in that fight. The reason I had to bring all that up is even though Jiraiya lost to Pain, he had a better performance against him than most people think. He started the fight not knowing anything about what the Rinnegan could do, meaning he was on the back foot in terms of intel for the entire time. And from starting in an unfavorable position, Jiraiya was able to fight for enough space to enter Sage Mode and eventually destroy 3 of Pain's bodies at the same time. He also managed to capture and steal away one of the pads of Pain to be brought back to the Leaf Village later on. It's only when Jiraiya is caught by all 6 pads of Pain at once that he finally goes down in an all-out brawl. I will say that Pain seemed to keep up with Jiraiya's speed better than when he did against Naruto, but Jiraiya still wasn't completely outclassed and could likely have beaten most of the pads of Pain in a one-on-one situation. The outcome of this fight was such that Pain admitted that Jiraiya may have won the fight if he knew everything about how Pain's jutsu worked. This statement is one I want to dissect a little bit as well, since most people tend to write it off completely when talking about this fight. Now, when Pain says Jiraiya may have even won had he known everything about Pain, this of course isn't a definite outcome. However, since Pain says this to himself, it is fair to assume that he's being mostly honest here. On top of this, I think that given the order of events in their fight, Jiraiya may have actually pulled the win had he known everything about how the Rinnegan worked. Even more so than this, I think knowing simply about the Narakapath's ability to revive the Pain bodies would have put Jiraiya in a position where he, 1, knew that there were more enemies that he would have to contend with. 2, would have been able to hide the bodies he had already taken down to keep them out of the fight. And 3, he would have been able to organize some sort of an ambush to take down the remaining paths of Pain, since he already managed to enter Sage Mode and take down half of Pain's bodies without too much trouble. If he had the intel needed about them, I do think it's easy enough to imagine a scenario in which Jiraiya could have won this encounter. This isn't to say that Jiraiya is stronger than Pain. I would hope it's obvious that I don't think that he is. But I do think it's enough to put him in a very close tier of strength to people like Pain and Itachi. Then, of course, I need to go over the fact that Jiraiya has one of the most diverse jutsu arsenals in the entire series, with access to 4 of the 5 elemental chakra natures, only without lightning, access to some of the strongest summoning beasts in the entire series, knowledge of sealing jutsu and other forbidden techniques, and he has some of the most extensive battle experience in the series, as well as having completed the most missions out of anyone in Konoha's history. He trained 2 of the future Hokage, was trained by one of the previous Hokage, and was on a team with 3 other high Kage level people, including Tsunade, who was herself later Hokage, Orochimaru, who was once a candidate for Hokage, and Jiraiya himself once being a candidate for Hokage. Jiraiya is legendary for a reason, and I think it's time people start treating him as such. Moving on to Team Hebi, I think the argument here is fairly obvious, that their numbers should be able to make up for the gap in power between their individual members and Jiraiya. I'll quickly go over them now, starting with Karin. Karin is a mostly sensory/medical type ninja who stays off the front lines during her time in Hebi. This may sound like a liability to the group if they're fighting a strong opponent, but as we see during their fight with Killer Bee, Karin is an incredibly important member of the team. Without her around, Sasuke would have died in a matter of moments against Bee, and she is constantly doing things to make sure the other members of the team are able to complete the missions that they're on. On top of this, she has some of the best sensory skills in the entire series, able to register a distinct chakra signature from miles away and gather information about her targets before they even know she's tracking them. Jugo is a frontline type fighter with access to the original version of the curse mark, which, as many of you may already know, is an imperfect version of Sage Mode that amps Jugo's physical attributes. On top of this, he can change the shape of his body to create natural weapons to augment his already incredibly hard-hitting taijutsu attacks. And last but not least, Jugo has the ability to share his physical body with someone to help heal them, as we see him do to Sasuke during the Killer Bee fight. This isn't something he can do an unlimited number of times, of course, but it certainly is handy in a dangerous situation. Jugo also has some impressive combat feats under his belt, being able to block an attack from the Raikage and then survive being run through with lightning style to the point that there was a massive hole in his chest. He seems easily capable of keeping pace with people chosen to be aides to the Raikage, meaning he's likely on the higher end of Jonin level at least. Suigetsu is an impressive fighter as well. While he doesn't have the ability to heal or track like Karin, nor the raw physical power of jutsu, Suigetsu has an array of some very unorthodox jutsu at his disposal and a lot of talent as a general fighter. He wields one of the 7 ninja swords, the Executioner Blade, which he was able to easily master the use of almost immediately. He was also able to spar somewhat evenly with Kisame using his sword, and Kisame is someone who many people place in the top portion of the Akatsuki. The other main pillar of his arsenal is the hydrification technique, which allows Suigetsu to turn his body into water. Using this technique, Suigetsu is able to nullify most physical damage that comes his way, making him almost impervious to physical damage. His only real vulnerability is to lightning style, which does do a lot of damage to his liquefied body. He can change shape through the use of this jutsu, making him able to squeeze through small gaps and cracks, and as we see during the Killer Bee fight, he can merge with larger bodies of water to increase his own physical mass and attack power. It's worth noting that a substantially strong attack can still take him down, but that's much easier said than done, since the only one we've seen do this is a tailed beast bomb from the 8 Tails. Lastly, we have the main member of Hebi, Sasuke Uchiha. Now Sasuke, being one of the main characters of the show, has a lot of depth to get into as well. I'll start with a general power scale though. And this version of Sasuke was easily able to overpower the entirety of Team 7, which at the time consisted of 2 high-level Anbu in both Sai and Yamato, and then as well as Chunin ranked Sakura and an unranked Naruto. He was also able to somewhat fight against Orochimaru, another one of the Sannin, and was clearly powerful enough to outright scare Kabuto, someone who's supposedly on par with Kakashi. Of course, the most impressive thing we see this version of Sasuke do is to take down Deidara, a ninja who is able to somewhat easily capture a Kage-level shinobi. Of course, Sasuke had the perfect set of advantages in this fight, meaning that he probably wasn't quite as strong as Deidara was. But since Deidara is someone who is clearly on the Kage level, and who I personally think is one of the strongest Akatsuki members, being able to take him down at all is no small feat, regardless of how many advantages you have against him. Sasuke has fire and lightning chakra natures at this point in the series, and he's one of the best users of each type we've seen up to this point. He has absorbed some of Orochimaru's essence, which many suspect gives him immunity to most poisons. He has the strongest version of Orochimaru's curse mark, making him able to amplify his own power as he needs to in the middle of a fight. I will take a moment though and point out that this amp is not a 10 times amplifier as some people think it is. It still is a substantial power up, but it shouldn't be anywhere near a 10 times amp. If it was a 10 times amp and during part 1 when he got it, by this point in the series he's gotten so much stronger that it shouldn't be a 10 times amplifier anymore. Sasuke is an incredibly smart and talented fighter as well, having made complex plans in an instant and adapting to new techniques almost on the fly to win fights in the past. Really, he's an incredibly gifted shinobi, and if he were on an even footing with Jiraiya in terms of overall power, I would probably give this fight to Sasuke in terms of who's a better ninja. But Jiraiya is, without question, more physically impressive than anyone in Hebi at this point in the series. And in fact, Sasuke outright admits that he wasn't nearly as powerful as Orochimaru was, and that he only beat him because Orochimaru was sick. Since I've already detailed how Orochimaru and Jiraiya should be around to the same level, I have no doubt that Jiraiya is more impressive on the physical front. And now that I've gotten a general power level and moveset laid out, I can get into how a fight between Jiraiya and Hebi would turn out. So from this point forward, I think my most effective method of explaining how this fight goes is probably to lay out the various win conditions that each group has and then break down whether the other side would be able to effectively counter said maneuver. Starting with Hebi, I think their first win condition is to simply keep pressure on Jiraiya and to outpace him. This would be a non-stop full frontal assault against Jiraiya with Suigetsu, Jugo, and Sasuke and Karin in the back to put the injured people back into the fight. Their goal would be to get Jiraiya on the back foot and either exhaust him or catch him in a situation where he gets hit by a powerful attack that takes him out of the fight, as something like Sasuke's Chidori might be able to do the trick here. Like I've already covered though, I do think Jiraiya is faster and stronger than every member of Hebi, with multiple chakra natures on his side and decades of battle experience. I think Jiraiya could probably string together some combination of summons and elemental jutsu to swing the tide back in his favor here. In fact, by summoning a few of the Sage Toads, the numbers game actually ends up back in Jiraiya's favor, surprisingly enough, resulting in a possible counter to the all-out assault strategy that Hebi would employ. The next move Hebi could try to do would be to help Sasuke set up the Kirin. This would be extremely dangerous for Jiraiya, but there are some drawbacks for Hebi as well. If any of the members are too close to Jiraiya, they would get caught in the jutsu at the same time, which would likely spell death for any of them, especially Suigetsu if he's liquefied. This is to say that this strategy isn't as simple as Sasuke just activating Kirin, but rather that they need to get Jiraiya in a situation where he's able to get cleanly hit by it without sacrificing the other members of Hebi. This would be hard due to the difference in power that I've already covered, but even beyond that, I think Jiraiya does have one or two options to survive the Kirin. The first is that if he realizes Sasuke is trying to do something big and does not allow himself to get dragged into a scenario in which Sasuke is able to safely launch the jutsu. The second, and in my opinion more entertaining and even more likely option, is for Jiraiya to summon the belly of the mountain toad to block the jutsu with. Of course, he'd have to summon it before Sasuke drops the Kirin on its head, But just like in option number 1, I think he would be able to recognize that something big is coming and be able to immediately launch the summoning jutsu to defend himself before Sasuke could finish prepping the Kirin. The last major win condition I see for Hebi here is if they can manage to trap Jiraiya in one of Sasuke's genjutsu for long enough to land a fatal blow on him. This is their most likely win condition, but I will discuss a flaw with this plan. Jiraiya once taught Naruto how to break free of a genjutsu, and if you recall during this scene, he actually explains 2 different methods on how to do this. If he's able to teach Naruto, who has no genjutsu talent whatsoever, how to do something like this, it's likely that these are techniques he's used himself at some point or another. Saying that, this means he may be able to break free of Sasuke's genjutsu even if he does get hit by it. The other scenario is that even if he can't, Jiraiya may already have some of his summons out to help defend him while he's trapped in a genjutsu, or even help break him out of one. So while I don't think this automatically secures a win for Hebi, I won't fault you for thinking that Jiraiya would lose to genjutsu. I'm just saying that he's got defense against it. On Jiraiya's side of the fight, he does have some more numerous and varied win conditions. Mirroring the first win con for Hebi, Jiraiya may be able to simply out-brawl his opponents here. Of course, like before, this depends on how you think these characters stack up against one another here, but I would give the edge to Jiraiya in a situation like this, especially after he activates Sage Mode. The second win condition I can see for Jiraiya is that he manages to trap the members of Hebi in one location and then finish them with one massive attack. For example, he could catch them all in the Dark Swamp Jutsu and then wipe their team with the Toad Flame Bombs, or he could catch them in the belly of the Mountain Toad and hit them with a giant Rasengan or something. To be honest, I can't think of a way that Hebi could avoid something like this, but if you can think of a way they could get away with a counter strategy in a situation like this, I would love to hear it in the comments below. The third strategy I can see Jiraiya employing is entering Sage Mode and teaming up with his summons to overpower the members of Hebi. His approach during this would likely be to rush down each member of the group while the others are forced to deal with the various Toad summons. Once again, I don't see many options for the younger ninja to survive here. Then lastly, for Jiraiya's win conditions, I can see him trapping all of Hebi in the Frog Sen Genjutsu and ending the fight from there. This would likely be his most effective singular attack, though getting it set up would be much more difficult. Sasuke in particular may have a good counter to this, since he could launch a pinpoint attack at either Ma or Pa with the Chidori Senbon. But anyway, I think it's pretty clear at this point that Jiraiya should take this battle in my opinion. He's simply too strong, fast, and experienced for a group like this to handle. This is probably a mid-difficulty fight for him, and I'd wager that out of 100 battles, Jiraiya should take roughly 80 or so. Like I said at the start, I think once Sasuke gets the Mangekyo Sharingan, things get a lot closer, and if you're all interested, I can go over that in a future video. But until then, I have to be honest and say that I think Jiraiya is simply too powerful for the members of Hebi to handle easily. If that other matchup is something you'd like to see, let me know in the comments down below, but otherwise I hope to see you all in the next video. Until then, stay safe, have a great day, and goodbye.